Gentleman's game back. So I recently just finished reading a classic book, The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Now I've read some of his other books like Mastery and The 48 Laws of Power before, so I was already kind of a fan, and after digesting this 450-page beast, I came away with some real gems. So much so in fact that I've actually decided to make a new series on this book. Now quick disclaimer that I don't necessarily agree with everything in this book, but I thought I'd present you with everything and let you make the decision as to what you find useful and what you can discard. This is going to be the first episode, which is going to be an overview of the theory of seduction. Robert Greene also makes the claim that there are 9 different types of seducers, and that recognizing which of the 9 resonates most with your personality is the most natural way to improve your skills as a seducer. I'm going to go into each type of seducer in more depth in the next episode of this series. But for now, let's just get an intro on what the book is even about. Real quick though, do me a favor and give this video a like. If we get over 5,000 likes, I'll know for certain that this series is a good idea to continue. You see, for most of human history, it was men that got their way in the world through using physical force. War, invasions, conquest. Kings didn't have to be subtle back then, only ruthless. And sadly, women arguably suffered the most in this patriarchal society because they simply couldn't compete physically. So, over time, women realized that in order to get their way, they had to beat men not physically, but psychologically. And so they came up with seduction. Women learned to use pleasure as bait in order to get their way, exploiting a man's insatiable appetite for sex by playing on their emotions, getting them to fall in love, and then all of a sudden going cold, confusing them. Certain women were famous throughout history for conquering entire nations just through their ability to seduce. Cleopatra is a great example of this. She famously seduced Julius Caesar in order to gain access to his Roman armies and consolidate power in Egypt. Seduction was almost a feminine version of warfare, a sophisticated art of power and persuasion. Then, eventually, men caught on and learned their own form of seduction, such as Casanova, for example. Men learned the effect that soft words can have on a woman in order to obtain her mind and body without using physical pressure. And around this time, seduction was starting to be learned and used for social reasons too, as well as political. Men like Napoleon, for instance, accumulated immense power by learning to seduce the masses, by using flowery language and also staging grand spectacles and having a theatrical presence. And today, more than ever, seduction is an important skill to have, because the use of force or brutality in order to get your way is pretty much out of the question in a modern civilized society. In fact, seduction is everywhere. Look at advertisements that seduce us to buy their product. Look at the film and media world that seduce us with flashy images of beautiful people having fun. We're constantly being bombarded with people trying to influence us, to persuade us to do what they want, and for the most part, we do a pretty good job of tuning most of it out. But if there's one moment in our lives where we truly act irrational, it's when we're in love, when we've been successfully seduced. It's almost like a spell. You've probably experienced the feeling before. Your mind becomes preoccupied with someone else, you get overly emotional, you lose your ability to think straight, and so forth. So in this modern world, nothing will bring you more power and results in your life than the ability to seduce, to persuade someone. Robert Greene says that seducers are people who understand the tremendous power contained in such moments of surrender. As the first seductress knew, it is much more effective to create love than lust. What he's saying here is that there's great power in being able to captivate someone, and that learning seduction is a skill of honing the ability to captivate others. And the truth is, almost anyone can master the skill of seduction. All that's required is that you look at the world differently, through the eyes of a seducer, someone who can tone down his sexual energy but not remove it completely. You see, a seducer doesn't need to turn his power on or off like a switch. Rather, he sees the world as his bedroom. He views every social and personal interaction as a potential seduction, whether sexually, spiritually, or intellectually. Rob writes, "This attitude creates great seductive momentum, and with each seduction, you gain experience and practice. One social or sexual seduction makes the next one easier, your confidence growing and making you more alluring. People are drawn to you in greater numbers as the seducer's aura descends upon you." This quote is 100% true in my own experience. I can recall countless times in completely different settings when I was socially on point. I'd be walking around the room making girls giggle and smile one by one, with each positive interaction making me feel more and more confident. It was kind of an awesome upward spiral of fun, flirty energy, which led to more and more people gravitating towards me. In the book, Robert has a very interesting analogy he uses to show how a seducer thinks when he's working his magic. He compares it to a walled castle whose defenses he's trying to penetrate. First, the seducer penetrates the mind, making the target fall for you and lowering the resistance to create physical surrender. A bit of an extreme analogy maybe, but I think the point he was trying to make was that seducers don't improvise and just say anything off the top of their head with no reason to it. No, a good seducer would calibrate to the person they're trying to win over and strategize something tailored to that individual. Because unlike what you see in the movies, love and romance isn't some sort of magical sacred thing that just happens if it's meant to be. This might seem romantic and all, but really it's just an excuse for laziness. How likely you are in seducing someone has a direct correlation with how much effort you expend into showing them how much you care. Simply leaving things to chance will almost always lead to failure because it shows you don't take love and romance very seriously. Again, think about the most legendary seducers throughout history, such as Casanova. It was the effort he made to get to know a woman, the artfulness of understanding their individual psychology and how to cater to that, which made him so attractive to women. Falling in love isn't some magical thing, it's psychology. Once you understand a girl's psychology, what makes her tick, and how to strategize your game to suit it, you'll be able to, as Robert puts it, cast a magical spell. One of the most important points that Greene makes in this introduction is that seducers are never self-absorbed. Their gaze, their attention, is always directed outward, not inward. When they meet someone, their first instinct is to get inside that person's mind, to see the world through their eyes. There are a few different reasons for this. Number one, when all your attention is on yourself, caring about how you come across, if you're cool enough, it's a huge sign of insecurity, something that is inherently anti-seductive. Everyone has their share of insecurities, but it's the ones who can ignore them and just be present in the world that everyone wants to be around. Number two, by having this outward gaze when talking to someone, imagining what it's like to be them, understanding their psychology or what makes them tick or what freaks them out irrationally, you can provide focused, individualized attention. And in a world where everyone is always judging you through a lens of their own prejudice, getting such individualized attention from someone is a rare commodity that'll go far in a successful seduction. This is also something that I can 100% attest to. In fact, I remember last month I was at a concert venue and my friend was trying to talk to a girl, but for some reason he was just acting super nervous and awkward. So he looks over at me and gives me this look and texts me, "Dude, this is going pretty bad. What should I do?" I asked why he was acting so weird and he responded, "Dude, she's so hot. I don't know, I feel like I have to be super smooth or something or else she'll think I'm weird." I text him back, "Dude, why are you so in your own head right now? Stop focusing on how you come across. Just focus on her, then joke around and be chill." He reads my message, takes a deep breath, then I can literally see him relaxing, and he just continues talking to her, only this time I could see from his body language that he's way more present and relaxed. Just as I figured, the girl starts relaxing and having fun herself. Soon enough she starts laughing and putting her hand on his shoulders. Let's just say my homie had fun that night. I know from experience that a lot of guys out there, when they talk to a girl, they're simultaneously thinking, "Man, what am I doing good and bad right now? What should I be saying? Is my body language good right now?" They'll get into this self-analytical mode instead of being present. Let me give you a word of advice. Save the analytical self-reflection till after you finish talking to the girl. While you're talking to her, again, make sure to have an outward gaze, not an inward one. So the final point that Robert Greene makes in the first section is that seducers see themselves as providers of pleasure, almost like bees that gather pollen from flowers to deliver to others. You see, when we're kids, all we think about is play and pleasure. Adults often yearn the days of being carefree and fun, always being weighed down by responsibilities. A seducer knows that people want to experience this pleasure again. He knows that a guy who enters a girl's life offering adventure and romance cannot be resisted. Girls want to be overwhelmed, to be seduced by an amazing guy, an amazing experience. Seducers train themselves to be sensitive to pleasure, knowing that feeling pleasure themselves will make it that much easier for them to infect the people around them. So, to summarize today's introduction to Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction, we talked about how seduction was developed throughout history, first with men and women, then for other social and political purposes. We talked about how seduction is a game of psychology, of understanding how to get someone to surrender to you through your own expensive effort to make them feel understood, and that every moment with you is fun and exciting. We also learned that a seducer's attention is rarely ever on himself, that his gaze is always directed outward at whoever he's seducing. So that's it for the video. Leave a comment below with what you guys think about this potential new series and what your biggest takeaway was from this video. Next week, I'm gonna go into the first two types of seducers, the rake and the siren. So make sure to like and subscribe, and as always, peace.